Hi guys, welcome to Full Time Devils. I'm Adam McKola. Today we are joined by Joshy, Stephen, and Squawka Dave. We're here for one big debate, and the topic is obvious. Jose Mourinho, Manchester United's new manager. What will he bring to the club? One thing's for sure, I've always liked Jose. What about you guys? Excited about the appointment? Wanted him all along? Or is he the right man for now? I'm going to come to Joshy first because we never get to hear from you as often as the other lads. Josh, what do you think?
Well, I'm excited, man. I think he's the right man for the job. 3 years too late, as far as I'm concerned. I was banging on about him 3 years ago when Moyes was appointed. You know, when he went to Chelsea, obviously he became a rival. He kind of, obviously, in the last season, dipped. I think if we're going to be generous, but I think he's the right man for the job. I've got a gut feeling that he's just, he's always wanted it, and we're going to see a different Mourinho, and this is going to be how he wants to manage a team. He wants to emulate Ferguson, I think, and try and build a legacy, which he just couldn't do at Chelsea. But he's going to have the backing. He's going to have the backing of the fans, and there will be patience to an extent. But I think he'll bring everything he's got to the role, and he's got a lot to prove. So I think it's all sort of sitting quite nicely for him.
Yeah, I mean, when you say patience, I mean, us fans have given patience to two lesser managers, if we refer to them both. So, I mean, regardless of what we think about Jose Mourinho, his record means that he does definitely deserve the time. Squawka Dave, how are you feeling about it all, mate?
I think it's a brilliant appointment. I think it's, again, like Jossie said, it should have happened 3 years ago. You know, Ed Woodward now coming out and say he was the best coach in world football right now. It's mental that he didn't sign him up 3 years ago when he could have had the opportunity. Would have been the perfect man to move on from the Sir Alex Ferguson era in a way that would have been so boisterous, and we would have forgotten about Fergie in a way, and we're still in that sort of shadow of Ferguson. What United need to do with Mourinho is give him the resources and give him the power to make those transfers, the team selection, whatever he wants to do. You've got to give him full control. He's a manager that needs that. At Chelsea, the sort of second time he was there, what we saw that was a bit of the conflict started when he started getting players. The technical director started buying in players that he didn't want, and eventually that exploded. But what Mourinho definitely doesn't have, and that is a philosophy, which is a brilliant thing for everyone who's watching this video right now, is that we're not going to be drawn into a philosophy or something like that. It's going to be more about him and his ego. Mourinho's the right man. He picks the right system at the right time and utilises players to the best of their capabilities. So for me, it's an absolutely cracking appointment, and it's going to be a great 3 years, a roller coaster, I'd say.
You made a great point in terms of sticking to a philosophy. Mourinho, whether it's good or bad, he does tend to play the game and play the occasion. So we'd expect to see some games in the league where he'll probably open up, and then some games in Europe where we'll probably play with no strikers, and we'll all be sitting there going absolutely bonkers. Stephen, how do you feel about it all? What did you make of his interview as well when he came in? Because he sure as hell did say all the right things, which you'd expect him to.
He did say the right stuff in the interview when he came in. I thought he was quite subdued for Mourinho. I thought he was almost embarrassed.
The honoured one.
It was weird, wasn't it? It wasn't normal Mourinho. You almost expected him to bowl in here and say the sort of shit that he said in his Chelsea one when he was like, "I am the special one." That was almost what I was expecting, and he was timid. He was quiet.
Well, he hasn't had his press conference yet. Give him time.
No, he's not had his press conference yet, but I still expected the excitement of giving him the job. You would see him on that form that we want. Maybe it's just that I don't know. It was weird. It wasn't what I expected. Put it that way. In terms of, am I happy that he's here? For me, I've said all along, wasn't it? There was no standout candidate for me. Nobody that I thought was the obvious choice. But out of those that was available, I think you probably have appointed the best one that was available. There's question marks about him, but without a shadow of a doubt, it's going to be exciting to see what happens going forward.
We've got a part in the show where we'll get to negatives, so don't worry about that. We always cover it all here. Guys, do any of you need to run? I just heard some sirens then. You all okay, yeah? Everyone all right? Let's get stuck back in there. Right. We'll move on to signings then. So obviously, we're all happy about Mourinho coming in. Me personally, I'm happy that we've signed the best choice available, although I do have my reservations about Jose Mourinho. I've never been his biggest fan, but I can see it makes sense to bring him in, despite the fact that I think he's got us exactly where he would have wanted us 3 years ago when we rejected him and went with David Moyes. One thing that we can all agree on is Jose Mourinho brings a name that will attract talent, attract players to the club. So who do you guys see him bringing in? We hear all this talk about Zlatan Ibrahimovic, Morata, other kind of players as well. Will.i.am's another name that's been mentioned recently. Josh, who do you think he'll bring in? Who does he need to bring in? What areas does he need to strengthen? What's your thoughts on transfers in Mourinho?
I mean, I think we're going to have a pretty exciting summer. I think we're going to bring in quite a few players. I don't want to second guess who he's going to bring in because we just don't know. We've been linked to hundreds of players, and that's normal for United. But now since Mourinho's come in, we're linked to pretty much everyone. It's difficult to predict who. But I think certainly he'll bring in a centre-back. I think he wants to bring in a mobile, combative midfielder and a fast, he said, I think probably, through the papers, we think he said a faster attacker. From my point of view, given all this talk about Simeone potentially leaving Atletico, that could be a quite nice little shopping list for us if that team sort of starts to dismantle. I'll be looking.
Godin.
Yeah, I've said it before. Diego Godin at the back, phenomenal centre back. Up top you've got Antoine Griezmann, versatile, phenomenal player, quick, intelligent. And then in midfield you've got the likes of Saul, Koke, Gabby, all excellent players. And the thing about all of them, the work rate is phenomenal, and that's what Mourinho is looking for from all of his players. But the thing about those players, they combine their quality with the work rate. So, that would be... I mean, I'm not saying we'll get all of them, but I'd certainly be looking at Atletico if Simeone is going to be leaving, which is a rumour going around at the moment. And even if he isn't, they are historically a selling club. Players will want to move on and certainly test the waters with a few of his players and see where we can go. They're quality players there.
They are, and one thing with Atletico as well, they seem to play the same kind of tactics that Jose likes to play, so maybe some of their players would be very suited to playing under Jose Mourinho. Squawka Dave, you've got the stats. Any signings you want to see him make? Any signings you think he will make? What do you think about Zlatan?
I think Zlatan would be a great signing. Zlatan's really evolved this season. He's got even better than he has done, which is a crazy thing. 34 years old and he's still banging in 38 league goals and getting 13 assists in the league. What he's evolved at as well. Is that? I think that's a bit of a disrespect on the league. The league is still a very, very competitive league. You've still got the likes of Lyon, the likes of Saint-Etienne, Nice have done very well this season. So the whole, Ligue 1 is a terrible league is a pretty bad argument in terms of. But if you look at his goals, 38 league goals is pretty damn incredible wherever you score them. Even if you scored that in, let's say, the Israeli First Division, it's still a very, very, very good record. What Zlatan will give us is that option to take the ball in the 10 slot and then play it wide. It's going to be perfect. If you've got players like Anthony Martial or have got another goal-scoring winger, if Antoine Griezmann does come to Old Trafford, which could be absolutely incredible, to bring those players into play, Zlatan is the perfect man there. I think definitely centre-backs, we need to get maybe two centre-backs there. Look at Raphael Varane. If Laporte didn't get that leg break, he would have been absolutely perfect. John Stones, I still think, is a top player, even though he's had a bit of a dip in form of late. Defensive midfield, again, I think that's a big place. We need a bit of Mourinho aggression in there. Someone like Matic in a way, so someone like William Carvalho, who had a pretty terrible, again, another leg break at the start of this season, came really back into form second half of the season. Look at his stats in the Europa League. He won 14 out of 21 tackles, so he's still got that physical presence, and that's in only 5 games, so it's absolutely killing people again. Kragovac, the defensive midfielder, the Polish defensive midfielder for Sevilla, would be perfect in there as well. And I think another attacking player, whether it's Griezmann, whether it's Eden Hazard, that would be absolutely unbelievable. But I think we need a little bit of flair in that final third. So any of those players would be great, Mourinho. Bring them all in.
You mentioned Eden Hazard there, Squawka Dave. Didn't Mourinho hold him back a little bit?
I completely disagree. Mourinho turned him into he put him up there with the top 5 players in the world. Obviously, this season, Hazard's form has gone to absolute rubbish, but that was probably a mentality thing where he was gearing to a move away from Chelsea, which was probably a stupid thing on his behalf. But if you look at his stats the season before when he won PFA Player of the Year, he had Lionel Messi stats in a way where he was completing the most passes in the final third by a country mile, creating the most chances, completing the most take-ons, scoring goals, getting assists. He's a ridiculous talent, especially on that left-hand side. But then again, we've got Anthony Martial up there, so maybe we should be looking for a right-sided player over a left-sided player.
And guys, obviously we've got some players at the club that are relatively new as well, just not long been brought in, may have been signed by Van Gaal or Moyes, if you're Mata or Fellaini. Do you see any of these guys having a big future at the club? Do you think there's anybody that Jose needs to hold on to, let's say David De Gea?
Do I not get to talk about who I want to sign?
Oh, sorry, did I not come to you, Steve?
No, you didn't.
I'm sick.
We don't care about what you think.
Yeah,
Jesus,
what? Go on then. Go on. Tell us who you want him to sign.
Well, I'm led to believe that we're targeting a centre mid, centre half, centre forward, and a right winger, which is pretty sensible, to be honest. It's not going through that sort of period where we decided that we was going to sign 15 left backs like we did under Fergie in one summer. As for who that could be, it's paper talk, innit? There's talk of Gomez in central midfield, not a fan. There's talk of Krikoviak in centre midfield, I am a fan. The right wingers, there's talk of Griezmann, there's talk of Mahrez, but maybe that's just us being wishful thinking, I think. There's talk like Lukaku's going to be on the move from Everton. I think any of those is probably going to be an improvement. In terms of a centre-half, yeah, there's talk of Varane, there's talk of Stones, but I think this squad has got far too much young heads in it at the moment, and I want to see us go with an older head, and Huides is the top of my list for a centre-half because I think we need that combative, experienced, just killer at centre-half. He's as close as you're going to get to a Vidic sort of centre-half for me, and I think that's what we need, a real leader in the back line. I like Chris Smalling, I think he's got some good qualities about him, but he's not an out-and-out leader, and I think Huides can be that leader. And there's a couple of other players that need to step up in there as well. I don't know who we're going to end up signing. Zlatan looks like the most obvious one, but I think his agent's trying to pour water on that. If you look at his quotes from the weekend,
his agent trying to get a bigger contract offer from elsewhere and just using Manchester United.
Maybe. I mean, that wouldn't be the first time we've ever seen that happen, did it? I mean, so maybe. But I also think that the things that he said about Mourinho, I think he's also got the final challenge in his career is to come to England and win a title. He's done it everywhere else. So it all lines up for me, but just because it makes sense doesn't mean it'll happen. Tons of things make sense and don't happen, and tons of things don't make sense and do happen. So I'd like to see Zlatan happen for a multitude of reasons. His age being one of them, actually, because I think that there's players in the squad that need to come in and grow. And if you bought someone like 23, 24 years old, that stifled the development of the likes of Rashford and Martial and stuff like that. Zlatan, the age he is now, I think he's going to actually increase the development of those sort of players.
Yes. Cheers for that, Steve. Right,
no problem. That's what I'm here for.
Transfers out. Any players that we've got at the moment that you think Jose can work on and turn them into a world beater, like I think he can with Timothy Fosu-Mensah, or players that you think he needs to get rid of ASAP? Josh?
Look, I think the squad in general is pretty decent if we take into account the fact we hope we're going to bring in about four players who'll go into the first 11. I don't think too many players should be shipped out. The core is pretty good. In terms of players that Mourinho might want to get rid of, he got rid of Mata. He might be sitting nervously. I'm not sure whether I would get rid. I think he's certainly useful to have around the squad. As much as I hate to say it, Fellaini's the type of player Mourinho would like to use as an option, I think, at times, but hopefully not as a starter. I think Luke Shaw will certainly benefit from Mourinho. The defence overall, I think, will. I don't know that there's anyone that stand out that he'll sort of build a team around at the moment. I think it's more about adding in those core areas where we've already discussed. And a few players like Carrick may be shipped out just because it's the end of his contract. He may not get one. And then you've got to look at Phil Jones as well as someone who might sort of go out. I think someone who I think might surprise people next season. He may not be a starter, but I just have a feeling Marcos Rojo might come through under Mourinho and just have that, because I just like his... I think he's a bit of a hard guy, so I would just like someone hard in that defence, but I don't know. It's difficult to say. Mourinho does bring the best out of his defenders, so that's probably the area where we'd see the most improvement, but it's also the area where I think he'll bring someone in, so it's difficult.
I think Rojo, you can look at Smalling.
Yeah.
I think Rojo, you can look at what Smalling's done. When Smalling was played at right back, he looked terrible. But when he's played at centre-half consistently, he looks good. So I think what you could do with Rojo, if you play him consistently at centre-half instead of playing him at left-back... Stop shaking your head, Dave.
No!
Dave, you just mentioned the Israeli First Division in this video, so listen, zip it. I think Rojo would do a decent job. I'm not saying he's the best defender in the world. I think he's a far better centre-half than he is a left-back.
I disagree, man. Rojo is so dodgy. He's one of the most dodgiest defenders I've seen at Old Trafford. He's so unsure of himself when the ball's in the air. He doesn't know what to do, doesn't know whether to attack it, when it let it bounce. And then when someone's running, he just doesn't. I just don't think he's good enough. He doesn't have it upstairs. He's not clever enough. But I think players that will improve under Mourinho, especially someone like Chris Smalling, who technically has a little bit of an issue as well. When he gets pulled wide, he loses himself. FA Cup final, the 2 yellow cards he got were the same technical foul, both pulled out into that wide area, and he got too tight. He's a quick lad. He's a tall lad. He could have kept up with Connor Wickham it was, and then I think it was Balassi. He could have kept up with those lads, but he was going in too tight. Because he got a bit, I don't know, scared or something that he was the last man. I don't know. It's something that Mourinho needs to work on. But with Mourinho, he'll sit a lot deeper, which will be fine. It'll help Smalling out. He'll be able to be aggressive, and he just needs someone sweeping in behind, and he's absolutely laughing. In terms of left-back, Luke Shaw's going to have an absolute world in the Mourinho. I think having a more defensive-minded right-back might be what Mourinho's going to do, so that's pretty good news for someone like Darmian or Fusu Mensah, whoever he wants to bring in there. It'll be absolutely perfect. You, sometimes, mate, I'm in flow, and you're throwing this thing out, like how to say names, Howson.
It's not hard, is it? It's spelled Fosu. There's no double O or anything. Fusu.
Or a Z.
It's actually Cryovac, mate, not what you said before anyway. But anyway, we'll move on from that, Howson, because I'm not
clearly
on things. But anyway, I think with defensive midfielders that are going to sit in front again, Morgan Schneiderlin could be someone that really can evolve under Mourinho, similar to what happened to Matic, where he had a very good ball winner in there next to maybe a ball player. So that, again, it'll be very, very... The centre-backs are going to get a lot of protection, which, again, will help Smalling. Not going to get pulled out into uncomfortable areas. In terms of attackers, I think Mourinho will give them the freedom. We've heard loads of quotes from United players that have been saying, Mourinho, when you're a striker under LVG, you've got to take the ball, give it wide and get into the penalty area. That isn't going to happen under Mourinho. He's going to give him a little bit of freedom in the final third, which will help the likes of Martial, Rashford, Zlatan, whoever's going to be there. So there's a lot of positives for this, but I do think Marcus Rojo's got to be the first man out of Old Trafford.
Fair enough.
I like Marcus Rojo. I know what you mean in terms of defensively. He's a little bit suspect. But I think he could be one of those nasty bastards that Jose Mourinho loves. We all remember how defensively poor David Luiz was. And he seemed to just love him. He loved Pepe as well. Seemed to love him. I know he's better defensively, but he seems to like these crazy bastards. And I think Marcus Rojo could be his crazy guy.
In fairness, Rojo, I think he's a crazy bastard. That's only because of his tattoos. He's not really done much on the so it's all based on that. So hopefully he does improve. I can see what Dave's saying, but I still have a gut feeling he could be like a Mourinho. He's someone that he can bring through. I don't know.
Memphis. What about Memphis? I've got high hopes for Memphis, and if he was to leave this summer, I would probably be really, really sad. I was going to say cry, but I wouldn't cry, let's be honest. So, Memphis, the player. How do you think, what can Mourinho do with him? Do you think he can do anything, or will he just sell him? Anyone, the floor's open. Jump in.
No, I think, Memphis, I agree with you. I don't think he's had a chance, or we haven't seen the best of him, and I'd be disappointed if he was shipped out after a single season. A lot of players take time to settle in England. Certainly coming from the Dutch league, that it's a different pace of game. I'd like to see him get another season at United and see if Jose can bring out the best in him. And then if not, then fair enough. But I think he's one of those where he just doesn't look like he's putting in the effort, so the fans get on his back. But I think it's more his style of play. So I definitely want to see more of him. But if he goes, I wouldn't be sort of overly upset because you'd have to think Mourinho's got a plan. So yeah.
True. I was watching a video yesterday of all of Martial's goals, and I think from the first 8 or 9 of the season, Memphis was involved, and he was looking quick and fast and sharp. And at the end of the season, he just looked a completely different player. He seems to have lost a lot of confidence, but we know how Jose Mourinho tries to drill in defensive duties to his attacking players. Squawka Dave, do you think that could be a problem for Memphis?
I think technically that was the issue why Louis van Gaal didn't want to play him, because he was so poor, dropping back into the second bank of 4. The first one's the defence, second one's midfield. He had a bit of an issue with pressing as well. He kept on pressing the left centre back where he should. His man was the left back, and it was a bit of an issue. The right back, other side, right centre back, right back. And that was an issue for Manchester United technically. It meant people could play out the press. That Arsenal game where United lost 3-0, Memphis Depay time and time again was pressing Mertesacker, and the outball was there into central midfield because there was a gap that was supposed to be filled by him, and it was a bit of an issue. But I think what Mourinho needs to do is free him up. take away that defensive responsibility. I think a lot of the goals that he scored at PSV Eindhoven were either on the counter-attack or were free kicks. He scored 7 free kicks, but that's a confidence thing. He scored 1 free kick and the momentum built, and I think he's a big, big confidence player. If Mourinho can get him confident again, we've got a real talent there. It's a thing that's been frustrating to watch Memphis this year. Playing him out left, he's become a little bit one-dimensional. He kept on coming inside. What Louis van Gaal could have done is free him up centrally, play him as a second striker like he did at the start of the season, where he, to be quite honest, looked pretty good. Well. Yeah, and pre-season, the link-up with Rooney, some of those games over in America was ridiculous, and it just seems like he kind of threw him under the bus in a way where he didn't quite work out. He couldn't get his confidence going. He couldn't score a goal. And then, Louis van Gaal, there's an excuse to get him out the side. But I think Mourinho, counter-attacking football that Mourinho likes to play, it's perfect for Memphis Depay. The transition is where United are going to be so good next season. And that is what Depay has pretty much built his career on a way, breaking through, getting through one-on-one with the keeper and then being composed in that sort of situation. So hopefully Memphis is a player that can really explode. But then again, where do you play him? That is the big question. I don't know where you're going to play him. If you've got Martial playing on the left, maybe Zlatan up front, maybe on the right, but again, he looks a little bit unconfident on the right.
Before we move on to the next topic, one player nobody has
Mark, you have remembered I'm on this call, you?
Yeah,
didn't ask me about the outgoings, not ask me about Memphis. Jesus, I'll just hang up, shall I?
Coming to you next. This is the thing, I'm setting it up.
Jesus.
I'm a good presenter, you know what I mean? Try and do these things. Set you up, bring you in. Come on, Steve. I know you're there. Oh, chef. Right. Steve, I was saying, David De Gea is in between the sticks. Another player.
I don't want to talk about De Gea. I had loads to talk about on Memphis. I had loads to talk about on the outs. Stop skipping over me.
Talk about De Gea.
I don't want to talk about De Gea.
Talk about Memphis first, and then De Gea. De Gea.
Don't tell me what to do.
Why are you making me speak like that?
Right. Should I talk about Memphis?
Wow, you done all right, yeah?
Yep. Right, so I thought Dave touched on it a little bit there with the style of play, and if we got a counter-attacking system, it would definitely suit him more. You have to think about the positions that he was receiving the ball in. He's not got that close control that Martial has. He's a more explosive player. The ball was never played in behind for him to chase onto. It was always played to him with his back to the defence or with him standing static on a touchline. And then you've got to get him going forward. I think there's quite a lot of weight to Memphis, relatively. I think the way he was receiving the ball static, he then was left with a couple of options. You either needed Luke Shaw on the overlap, which was sort of working because that would at least draw the eye of the defender, or he would have to come inside. When Luke Shaw was playing with him, he could come inside because Luke Shaw was a dangerous outlet that the defence had to take care of. When it wasn't Luke Shaw, people was just sort of like, yeah, we'll leave the left back, whoever it was, be it Ashley Young, be it anyone that's played there. There's been so many play there this season. They're not as much of a threat as Luke Shaw's been. So when he's been cutting inside, the defence has been following him because he's the more dangerous man. And I think like Dave picked up on, if we're playing a little bit more with the ball in behind the defence or we're playing it for him to run onto and we're trying to break faster, because that was the problem on it. We were so slow in that final third that we didn't transition through the thirds quick enough. So when we did get to the final third, the opposition had all come back, sat in 2 banks of 4, sometimes 2 banks of 5, and just gone, break us down. And we couldn't break them down. And that was the problem the whole season. And I think once we get a change in mentality in terms of how to attack, be a slightly bit more direct under Jose, I think you're going to see a better Memphis. And I agree slightly on the positioning and it's the same thing. It's because he's receiving it so flat. He's so wide. He's so isolated almost on that left-hand side that there's no option for him apart from him to come in. He can't go round the back because there's not enough space. And I think that slight little change in terms of the tempo and how fast we try and move it through the thirds is going to result in a massively different Memphis. But I'd also like to see him brought into the centre a little bit and tried. Dave mentioned that he didn't look great on the right-hand side. I think he's played like once or twice there. That's not enough to really see him.
I think that it's an unfair point to say he didn't look great, but he just looked a little bit unsure of himself on that left. Seems like he's got a plan. And again, I completely agree. We didn't play him in behind enough. It's mental. You've got a player that can finish so well. You're not playing him behind. What are you thinking? And what are you looking at? You want him to stay wide and come in and shoot every single time. There's no variation. But the right could be a good option because he is right-footed. He can go both ways in a way. But I just feel it's got to be. This season is so big for Memphis Depay. If he kind of doesn't get it this year, that's kind of it for United, I think.
Look what Mourinho's known for.
Both ways. Oi, lads, shush.
Hey, no, you shush. What's Mourinho known for? He's known for preparation. So he's not just going to play Memphis on the right and say, good luck, have a good game. Yeah. He's going to tell him exactly what he wants him to do. And once he knows exactly what he needs to do with the ball on the right-hand side, then I think you're going to see him a lot more confident in what he needs to do. I don't think Louis van Gaal was giving him that much instruction of how to attack and stuff like that, but I think Jose does.
All right, shut up. Done. Memphis finished. Yeah? Thanks for that.
Shall I do my outs now?
We've been talking about players out for too long now. So basically what we're going to do is, in a word, I want you to say to me, is David De Gea going to be there next season? Dave, in a word?
Yes.
Joshy, in a word?
Yes.
D, in a word?
Maybe.
Ooh, controversial.
I like this game. Let's play one more name out the hat. Marouane Fellaini. Is he going to be there next year? Josh. That's a word, right?
Yes, I think he will be there. Yes.
Dave.
Yes, 100%.
Steve.
Absolutely 100% no.
Right, that was fun. Another player that I think we've got, which you won't get out, is Daley Blind. I think it could be very useful to Jose. But anyway, moving on from that. Now, this is one thing that's been stuck in the back of my mind. Ever since Jose Mourinho became Manchester United manager, I've felt like this is the right decision. This is the one. We can move forward feeling confident. But in the back of my head, something just feels so wrong. It feels like it's not supposed to be this way. I've woken up in another world, and I'm scared that Jose Mourinho may play no strikers, may play very negative football. But that's not my biggest fear. The biggest fears for me are the antics that come with Jose Mourinho, and of course, the lack of progression for youth players in his sides. Now, how do you guys feel about that? Do you think he will embrace the club and its traditions, or do you think the club need to embrace Mourinho and the way he is? Josh, I'll come to you first. You've been quiet, mate.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of those ones where I've got to go with my gut feeling on this. And normally I'd look at the evidence, look at his past behaviours and say, yeah, he's just going to bring it and that's what he's going to do. But I've just always had a feeling with him. It's based on pretty much nothing other than what I've read, but I don't have any specific evidence. But I think he's just going to embrace what it is to be at United. I think he's aware of these things that are being said about him. And that's both about the youth and about the whole sort of the antics and the bigger circus that he sometimes brings with him. And I think what we'll probably see, if I'm being realistic, a season and a half of sort of or something along those lines of where he seems to be bought into the whole thing, and then it'll start to unravel. But ideally, I think actually I'd love him to just be that guy and be here for a long time. When it comes to the youth side of things, again, I think he's bought into that idea with United. But at the same time, he's going to be a bit more pragmatic. He's going to bring in other players, and I think we'll see a few players coming through, maybe not as much as Van Gaal, but out of necessity or out of design, whatever it might have been. He brought in, I think he gave 14 players their debut this season, academy players, or over the 2 seasons. That's quite phenomenal. I don't think Mourinho will be on that level. But the likes of Rashford, Osimhen, I think they will get their chances, but just in more of a pragmatic way. I think it's just the way Jose is. And in the end, we've got to sort of accept that to an extent because, we've had 3 years of just mediocrity. We've got to now sort of start building again, back up again to being one of the elite sides, as well as being a massive elite club. Our side isn't on that level, so we need to be up on that level. So we've got to balance it out. The evidence suggests he's not going to play the youth, but I just have a gut feeling it's just all going to marry up. I've just felt that way for a while.
Right, Steve, how do you feel about Jose in terms of the negatives? Do you think he will bring that negativity with him, or do you think, like Josh said, that he will embrace the club first and it's maybe something that will come to the fore at the end, near the end of his 3 years?
We have absolutely no idea, do we? We can only play it out and see what happens. History tells you that. Well, it didn't really go wrong for him at Inter, did it? Because he'd already had the Real Madrid lined up, so it didn't really end in a car crash at Inter, but it's ended in a bit of a car crash everywhere else, hasn't it? And I expect that at some point, when he does come to leave United, it's going to end in a car crash. It's going to end in him falling out with people. It's going to end in him I think he tries to deflect a little bit, and I think the Eva Canero thing last season, he went so big on it because he was failing on the pitch, and he tried to make it a distraction, and it blew up in his face. And I don't think he could have expected it to have blown up the way it did. I don't think he could have expected the way it would end up in front page and back page news the way it did. But I think that's just something in Mourinho's personality, that he will try and deflect if it's not going right on the pitch. He does it sometimes where he'll come out and criticise a ref, he'll take the mickey out of an opposition manager, and he'll do the sort of things that he knows Sir Alex Ferguson used to do, but he's just not as wily with it. Sir Alex Ferguson was kind of sly and kind of subtle. Mourinho's like a hand grenade going off in a china shop. It's not subtle, it's loud, it's in your face, and it's kind of obvious when you see what he's trying to do at times. If he stays for a long time, it's only going to be because he's successful. But you have to look, the fact that he's reigned, people say it's a myth that he stays for 3 years. It's not, it's a fact that he stays for 3 years. Can he stay for longer? I'm sure he can, because I think there's a desire at Manchester United to have another legacy. We're probably not going to get one, but there's still the desire to that. People would prefer to have that than to be just chopping and changing the manager every 3 years. From a financial sense, and we know that's what matters to the Glazers, it's cheaper for us to not have to sack him. It's cheaper for us to not have to get a new manager in, because every time a new manager comes in, that means you've got to let like a dozen backroom staff go and hire another dozen backroom staff. Them contracts need paying off. The new manager doesn't like half the players that are at the club, so you're looking at transfers left, right and centre. It's just not financially sensible to keep changing your manager all the time. It's a lot more financially sound to have one guy oversee everything and have a legacy and a longer-term plan. That's why everybody wants that long-term thing. But the desire in football is for instant success. So you've got these two things playing off against each other. Mourinho's not got a great reputation with youth. I've just been having a look at some of the stuff that he did with Inter Milan. Now, he brought in one of the most batshit crazy players in the world in Mario Balotelli. He didn't give him his debut. He'd already played around about a dozen games the season before for Inter Milan. But he's played about as much as Rashford played this season for us, not in the same sort of chunk over the course of a season. He played about 15 games. The following season, he played about 15 games. This is when Balotelli was 18 years old, and he'd already started to have them disciplinary problems. Mourinho did kind of stick with him. Wasn't a first choice, but he did have Melito and Etu in the team. So he was fighting amongst those two. Now, this might be the same thing for Rashford next season. He's going to be fighting amongst Zlatan potentially and Martial potentially. So you're not going to expect Martial to play 30, 40 games for us next year. So I think if the youth is there and it's good enough, I think he is prepared to use it. I think the pressure has just been different at at Madrid and at Chelsea and Inter Milan. I think the pressure there was to get success, where I think he's going to be well aware that the pressure at Manchester United is to do all of that as well as honour the heritage of Manchester United, because nobody has got, for starters, no one's got a record going back to 1938 when there's been a youth player in every single matchday squad. That's a fact. So the fact that that youth record exists, he's going to have been told about that, and he's going to have been told, make sure you honour that, especially that record. Whether that means that you're going to see the likes of Fosu Mensah, Borthwick, Jackson, Riley, Rashford in every single starting 11, I wouldn't have thought so. He's going to pick the teams to get the job done. But I would like to see at least him thinking about it. I would like the youth be in his thought process, because this is Manchester United, and that youth, courage, and whatever the other bloody thing is that we keep talking on about all the time. That's the first one, is youth. So let's think about that, and let's hope that he can honour that. Because if he can be as successful as he has been at other clubs without burning everybody out, and he honours the youth, well, what a manager we've got on our hands.
Go on, Dave.
Well, I think Mourinho is going to be that man. If the car crash happens, he's going to end that record. It's just going to happen. If he falls out of the club, he's going to be the man that stops it. Having a youth player in the matchday squad. But let's talk about Mourinho. I think he's a little bit, maybe not hurt, but people's feelings about him are a bit disjoint because of how successful he is. He won the Champions League with Porto, he won the Champions League with Inter Milan, and since then it's always about winning the Champions League. If we just look at his record, the second season is when he absolutely flies. Porto won the Champions League. Chelsea, kept the league title. I think he won the double that year. Go over to Inter Milan, he won the Champions League, won the treble, a historic treble for Inter Milan, with an older squad. But to do that with those players was absolutely brilliant. You go over to Real Madrid. He was the first manager to win the title since, obviously, when Pep came into Barca. He was the first guy to win it then. Second season again. Back to Chelsea. Second season, he won the league. So maybe what this season is going to be a building season. And then next season is where Man United will absolutely explode. I think Mourinho, with young players, what he's done as well, if they're good enough, they will play like, what Howson was saying, Petr Cech, Ian Robin the first time he went to Chelsea. Those players were good enough. Martial will play. Marcus Rashford, I think, will also play because I feel that he is good enough. Whether he plays on the right, whether he plays up top, I just think he's going to be in there around the squad. Look at his chance conversion this season. It's absolutely ridiculous at 56%. That is an absolute joke. That's better than any Premier League player. So goals-wise, he can get into the penalty area and he can score for Mourinho. So I think a wide forward is where Rashford will play. And it will be, Mourinho is Mourinho. It's going to be an absolute roller coaster. But I'd like to take the ride and see how this happens because it could work out, like we're saying, this next sort of legacy. For Sir Alex Ferguson at Manchester United for so long, it'd be great to have Mourinho for that long as well.
I kind of feel, I'm going to be very quick about it. I feel like the same, like next season, the season after, I think I'm very excited for those seasons in terms of what we'll do, how competitive we'll be, but then how long will that go on? I think a lot of the time his 3-year cycles come because he doesn't invest in youth. When you invest in youth and you throw youth into your squad of winning teams, they get the other players on their toes, fighting for their spots and stuff. And it just freshens it all up. And I think he needs to do that with Manchester United if we are to be successful on a long-term period. But let's see what happens with that. Right then, guys, we've come to the end of it. I just need your verdicts on Mourinho now. What can you see for the future? What can you expect for the next few seasons and beyond? I know we've just touched on it a little bit in terms of his longevity, but how do you see it going? It's time to get your prediction hats on. Josh, haven't heard from you in a while, mate. You still there?
I'm still here, yeah. Okay, predictions. Okay, the summer's going to be busy. I think that's an easy one. I don't know who we're going to bring in. Next season, I think we'll be up there challenging at the very least in terms of the title. But it's so hard to predict exactly whether we'll win anything or not because it just depends on who we bring in and things like that. But I think it's going to be an exciting ride, and I think we're just going to have a lot of fun with it. And it might blow up in our faces, but this is the one managerial appointment that I've wanted for since Fergie left, and let's see how it goes. I can't predict anything because he's also in a situation where he's come off a really poor season. It's probably the first time he's had a properly poor season in terms of results. So he's got a lot to prove as well, and I think that comes into it massively too. So I think it's going to be fun, and he's going to piss people off. He's going to take the piss out of other managers. I'm going to enjoy that. Last few seasons, I've not enjoyed that at all. But he's now our manager. So let's enjoy it. Let's see what happens. And if it does blow up in our faces, hey, it doesn't really matter. It's not like Pep sticks around for 10 years at a time. So let's see what happens. It's going to be fun. That's my prediction.
That's one thing that I love as well. Like Pep's just got to Manchester, and Mourinho rocks up. You're right, mate. I'm here to ruin your life again. Dave.
Well, I think that the big thing that Mourinho loves winning in England is the League Cup. So expect to be at Wembley in February lifting that trophy. So that'll be always great. But how to put it in terms of, I don't know, let's go to like comic books. It's like Batman versus the Joker. Pep is the Joker, yes, and Mourinho is Batman, an under-loved hero. And I feel that that's what it's going to be this year. It'll either be Pep wins the league or Mourinho wins the league. One or the other. And I hope it's Mourinho, and I hope that his lovely negative style of football in the bigger games comes through and we lift that Premier League title.
He's going to boil so much piss, isn't he? Steve.
Yo.
Another one that boils piss. How you see the future being?
Right, I want to ask you lads a question here, actually.
Fucking hell.
What's going to happen? There's a lot of speculation that you can't get away from. Ryan Giggs looks like he's on his way out the door. There's talk of Rio Ferdinand coming in. There was talk of Roy Keane coming in. Are people just talking about names because they don't know? Do you think there's any substance to any of them? Because for me, Giggs, yesterday in the paper, it said Giggs was flying in to have contract talks. Now, Monday, we was getting told that the club are desperate to keep Giggs around. There's still an under-18s manager job, and for me, that's where Ryan Giggs should go. If he doesn't want to walk away and go and manage somebody like Villa or something at the moment, because I think that'd be a decent shout for him. Someone in the Championship, because I think the Premier League, you're onto a hiding to nothing this season with the amount of top-class managers that are in it. If you're a new manager, I'd probably maybe look at the Championship first, because I think the Premier League's just going to be nuts this year, and to get success is not happening, I think, outside of those top 10 managers. It's going to be so hard. So I think Ryan Giggs has got to look outside United, and he's got to look outside the Premier League if he wants to go and prove his success. If not, I think the under-18s would be a good job for him, because I think if you're an under-18s player, can you imagine Ryan Giggs talking to you about what to expect and what to do? And you go, this guy's not only done it all, he's done it here in the position that I am in. So we would also get to see what sort of play he likes, what sort of formation he likes. And I think that'd be a great proving ground. And it'd be excellent for those youngsters to have a mentor like Ryan Giggs still at the club, because if he's not going to stick around in the coaching staff, then it's a hell of a personality to lose from the dressing room, I think. So, but that's the question I want to ask you guys anyway. Is it like, where do we see all this lot come in? Do we think he's just going to bring in a load of randomers that he's worked with elsewhere, or do you think he's going to the likes of Rio Ferdinand? Do you think he's going to be someone that they bring around? And should we be looking to bring around a load of United players? That boot room thing is what caught Liverpool up ultimately, wasn't it?
Thank you for that, by the way, Steve. I did forget to ask you guys about Steph. Great presenting job I'm doing here. Rio, Giggs, what do you guys think about them having a future at the club? Is it important to keep them in the club, or is it just important right now to get Rui Faria's crazy ass on them sidelines?
I think we need Rui indefinitely. I think Rui's going to be the number 2. We all know that. But I think Ryan Giggs, like Howson saying, needs to cut his teeth at management. The under-18s would be a great gig for him. United's under-18s were pretty rubbish last season, right? They came 11th out of 12 teams in the Northern Division. So they need a big improvement there. So someone like Ryan Giggs cutting his teeth at that level would be brilliant. But could be better to go out there. I think the champ, like Howson was saying, the Premier League is going to be far too competitive for him. He'll get found out. Maybe League One, League Two, even go that deep. Look at other sort of successful managers like Jimmy Floyd Hasselbank started really, really down the leagues with Burton, got himself, up the tree, and I think that's where Ryan Giggs needs to go. In terms of Rio Ferdinand, I'd love to see him back at United in some respect. He's got great, he's got passion for the club. He knows how Man United, he knows the attitude of the club. He's a winner, and I feel getting those players in, maybe even Gary Neville, obviously went out to Valencia, didn't have the greatest of times out there, needs to come back, get him somewhere on the coaching staff. I feel like bringing these old players back to the club will be better, because in the media at the moment, having them there is a little bit of an issue, because they're quite critical of the club. And again, Mourinho comes in and they stop liking what he's doing. There's a bit of a change of atmosphere, and we need to be supportive of Manchester United in the coming seasons, not sort of against them what we've been maybe in the last sort of 6 months, which hasn't been great as fans. We've got to stay classy, but it's a big, big thing. Well, I want to bring all those ex-players back into the club and be sort of ambassadors of what we're doing.
Josh, how do you feel about that? Because I kind of think like I want former players around, heroes around. I think they have their roles to play, but like with Giggsy, I don't think he should have been kept around because he's Ryan Giggs. So yeah, you deserve a job for life.
No, I think with Giggsy, look, he's got to wash the stink of the last 3 years off him, and when he does that as a manager of the under-18s or at another club, he's got to do that. He can't be, well, he's not, I don't think he will be assistant manager. I don't think he should be associated with the first team. Not because I have a problem with him per se. I just think he needs to make that move and be something a bit more where he's in charge. And yeah, under-18s, it's not the main manager of the club, but he's in charge of that team and the coaching and the development. So that might work, but another club would work probably better, because then that's an overall management thing for the club. Jose's going to bring in his coaching staff. He always does. Rui Faria has followed him pretty much everywhere, I think. Every club he's on there as assistant manager. In terms of bringing in the players, again, it's nice to think and feel that, yeah, these players can come back and make an impact. And we think, oh, it would be great. Rui's got a lot of passion, but can he coach? We don't know. Those are the more technical sides of things. So you maybe coming in as an ambassador is one thing. Coming in as a coach or an assistant manager is another. Gary Neville, yeah, he's done it at Valencia. It didn't go well for him, but I think he would be someone I would prefer more in terms of coming in. At least he's had that experience of being in charge of the club. He's got that coaching experience. He can come in, but even then, he wouldn't be coming in as an assistant manager. So whether he wants to come in as a coach, it's also about their own ambitions. So I wouldn't shoehorn old players in just for the sake of it. But if they have got a specific role to play and they've got the technical ability to do that, then I'm all for it.
How do you see it going under José Mourinho? I said it right. Yes.
It's going to be great. It's going to be a roller coaster. It's going to be brilliant. We've just got to stick in, buckle up, enjoy the ride. Defensive football in the bigger games. Yeah, get your sick bags. Defensive football is going to be great. 10 men behind the ball, camped inside our own penalty area, hitting people on the counter-attack for fun. We're going to win the League Cup. We're going to win the Premier League. Not this season, but next season. And that is a bold prediction.
21 is coming. Josh.
Yeah, no, it's going to be fun. I think he's going to piss people off, and that's going to be. we've been on the other end of that where we've not liked it, but now that he's on our side, I think I'm going to enjoy that side of things. Look, and we've said it before, he plays the game, he plays the match that's coming up. So this parking the bus thing, I don't care if he does it against Barcelona or, well, we're not going to play Barcelona next season unless they hit the Euro.
They could bomb out of the Champions League group and end up in the Europa and we'll smash them.
So if he plays 10 men behind the ball against Pep's City team and we hit him on the break and win 1-0, that's fine. If he does it every game, it might be an issue. But if you're winning, you're winning. And even under Fergie, when we were winning, it didn't really matter at times the way we played. So look, he's going to get us competitive. We'll challenge. The League Cup's a good shout. We might retain the FA Cup. And look, I think Pep's going to be the main challenge. And Jose's got something to prove. I think he'll rise to it. And certainly the first 2 seasons, we're gonna be trophy laden, hopefully. But then after that, it might fall apart. But I'm hopeful that he'll continue on past his 3 years.
Cheers, Josh. Steve, we're winning the league or what next year, this season?
Mate, if someone's able to predict the 1 to 20 of the league next year, they deserve all the money the world has ever produced, because that's going to be the most difficult thing to predict. Can you imagine even trying to predict the top 4 in order for next season? I can't even begin to think how you would do it. I think Arsenal are going to be strong if they sign a decent midfielder. Let's say they sign Kante and Lukaku. That's going to be a strong Arsenal side. But will Arsene Wenger sign that sort of player? Probably not. He'll probably sign about another 3 centre mids. So I think you've got to look at City and expect that they're going to be strong. They've got a great squad. They've got a manager that knows how to set a team up. But can they get set up quick enough? Because the season's just going to be on us and they're going to have to be fighting from the off. They're not going to have 8 to 10 weeks to be able to adapt to his style of play. So they're going to be a wild card. We're going to be a wild card adapting to José Mourinho. Spurs, if they are able to recruit, are going to be deadly. Leicester will not fall out of the top 6 completely. They're going to be in and around it and dangerous. Then you've got West Ham, you've got Liverpool, you've got Chelsea. This is going to be an absolutely mad season. To say anyone can win it at the moment, you're talking out your ass, because it's all complete guesswork. Let's just hope for a successful transfer window and a good start to the season. That's all I'm hoping for.
Yeah, we're going to win it.
We're going to win the league. We're going to, yeah, it is a big summer ahead. Big summer ahead. Cannot wait for it all. We'll be here discussing it all as well. Guys, thank you for joining us here today. Steve, thank you for keeping us on track. Josh, thank you for being back. And Dave, thank you for having the stats and stuff.
Cheers, bud.
Right.
Cheers.
Make sure you hit that subscribe button below. Make sure you get your comments in below. We want to hear all what you've got to say on the negatives of José Mourinho, the positives of José Mourinho, the staff that he should keep bringing, the players he should bring in, players he should maybe let go, and of course, your predictions for the future as well. Make sure you hit them comments up below. Subscribe, like, and share. We're all out of here.